This is Thursday, September 3rd, European History Backup Video. Charter soccer will play against the Post Falls Trojans this afternoon at Post Falls High School. Lady Panthers will start play at 4 p.m. with the boys to follow at 5:45. And lastly, for sports, high school cross country will run the Post Falls River Run today after school at Kiwanis Park in Post Falls. All senior photos, baby ads, and quotes for the yearbook are due by Friday, October 23rd, no exceptions. Seniors should contact the school office or Ms. Anderson with questions. And because it's super important, please remember to check in through the grades portal the days that you are online. This counts as your attendance for the day, so make it a part of your morning routine. Also, be sure to log in using your Panthers email account or the check-in tab will not be there for you. And lastly, there is no school next Monday due to the Labor Day holiday. Enjoy that 3-day weekend. This will also be the last reading of morning announcements on school property, so be sure to keep checking your email throughout the week for weekly, bi-weekly announcements about what's going on here at Charter. Thanks a lot, guys. You survived your first week on campus. Now please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
We'll figure it out. Uno momento, por favor. Yeah, you're ahead of it. No, I do it. She does. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. She confused me. She's supposed to stop. Okay. So, I have no idea, none, nada, nix, niente, no idea what the change is or why we are having a change in our morning announcement routine. But apparently we are, so yippee. What else? There too. And good. Okay. One of the interesting things that somebody said yesterday among my colleagues is how different it is to be around students who are masked. We are used to getting immediate feedback on what we do. For example, tends to mean, I don't understand you, please ask. And tends to mean, well, you know what it means, as well as, and the various other natural reactions that human beings have. And that's part of our subtext. It's not just our body language, it's our faces. So you guys are like a bunch of psychopathic mutant zombies who are covered. And all I can see are your eyes. And in many cultures, looking somebody directly in the eye for too long is a challenge. It's like staring at a cat or a kitten. Try it sometime if you haven't. They'll love it. Because what you're doing is you're challenging them. So you don't blink. You wait for them to look away. It's sort of a dominance thing. People, when you're shaking somebody in somebody's hand, which is a custom that we used to do before this bloody virus came along, and something that we will do again, God willing, after the virus has passed, you're supposed to give a good firm handshake and look them in the eye. But in general terms, looking straight into people's eyes is not the most natural thing. And we are not getting the feedback that we normally get. So you really have to deal with a couple of things. First off, if you don't indicate to your teacher that their perennial jokes are not funny, they won't know. Because they're not going to see whether you laugh or not. So if there's something you need to tell your teacher, go quietly, talk to them after class, and say, you're not as funny as you think you are. To which your teacher might say, I'm not trying to entertain you, I'm just trying to entertain myself. Or maybe they'll learn from it. If you don't understand, ask. If you are trying to convey something in the normal way, you might need to go above and beyond in terms of your body language, like silent movie acting or something to convey what you're trying to do. Or you can just say it. In the video game series Mass Effect, there's an entire race of beings that are a bit bovine, cow-like, who don't understand. They're called the Elcor. They don't understand the subtext of our facial tics. So what they'll do is they'll say inquisitively, "How is your day going?" Humorously, same stuff, different day. They'll preface what they say parenthetically with how they're feeling or what they're intending. And it can become funny, but aliens. So bear that in mind. Your teachers, not only are you deprived of your freedom to wander around the campus freely, like semi-adult human beings who are responsible, but you have to follow the flow. Not only are you forced to wear those face coverings and all the other lovely things that we have to do right now in order to stay open, but just the normal give and take of human interactions is trammeled, is interfered with, is blighted by this. So please bear that in mind and let your teachers know and let each other know. Because the normal way that we react includes a lot around the face. The face is an amazing development. And it's one of the things that some evolutionary biologists think is a key to our sentience, as important as opposable thumbs, or even almost maybe more important early on than the voice box. So bear that in mind. You are masked, and thus you are less readable than normal. Any questions or comments on that? Funny stories are also welcome. No, you're completely unamused by all of this. I can tell by your. You sure? Okay. Few things that I have to. Well, yeah, I'm going to mention them now at the beginning of class. When we go into the class policies document, you will learn about my movie policy. But since your families are going to have to sign off on it if they haven't already, let me explain it to you. Yes to battlefield violence, because war has changed throughout the ages. The Fallout series of video games is wrong because their slogan is "War never changes." And you can say it in your deep and gravelly voice with somber music in the background and have it be the climax of your game. The last full game that I played was Fallout 3 and its various enhancements, and it ends with this "War never changes." Bull! War changes all the time. It matters whether you kill people with your bare hands, with rocks, with clubs, with bows and arrows, chariots, with bronze weapons, with steel weapons, with longbows, with pikes, with primitive firearms like harquebuses, with more advanced firearms like flintlock muskets, and so forth.
But the intent is always the same, for the most part.
Actually, the cause. There is one cause in all wars that I usually emphasize when I teach ancient and medieval history. You had no Stembridge, so you wouldn't have gotten this. What is something that is common in every war that's ever been fought? There's a reason why we fight that is always the same. You want to take a shot?
Power struggle or
In effect, you're right. War. I'm going to put universal. It's not so much a power struggle for the present. Athens and Sparta in the Peloponnesian War have about as much to fight about as a lion and a tiger shark. Lions and tiger sharks don't have any problem with one another because they inhabit entirely different environments. Athens was a society of the sea, Sparta of the land. They weren't near one another, particularly as Greek distances go. So why do they end up fighting this 27-year ridiculous bloodletting that bleeds Greece white? And the answer is anxiety over the power struggle, not now, but in the future. Worry about the future. We are the only creatures that we are aware of in the entire universe that can apprehend our own demise. In other words, we say, no, we're going to die. And that is something that makes us different. We brood about it. We think about it. Why do you think every society on Earth has vampire legends and zombie legends? Because this idea of death. Why is religion ubiquitous? Why does every society have religious beliefs? Because this thing that is death happens to everyone in one way or another sooner or later. Right now, Athens and Sparta are evenly balanced. But 50 years from now, what if they keep getting stronger and we don't? We'd better fight them now while we have the chance. And that anxiety over the future, which is a variant of the fear of death, is involved in every struggle that we have ever had as a species. Worry over the future. So sometimes sentience isn't all it's cracked up to be. But yeah, no, war changes. And so I'm going to show you a lot of film clips from various conflicts because good drama is conflict, but also because the way we fight affects the way we live and affects the power struggle. So yes to battlefield violence. Yes to harsh language. Because soldiers on the battlefield, among others, they curse like sailors and stable boys. And I don't see a need to mess around and pussyfoot around that. When you're talking about people living and dying around you, and nobody's going to stop it, there's no police you can call because it's war. What you're supposed to do is kill or be killed. It is absolutely different from all other environments that we face. It's the closest thing to the law of the jungle that most human beings ever encounter in any way, shape, or form. Eat or be eaten. That's the law of the jungle. So people are going to curse. And so you'll get yes to violence, in context, yes to harsh language. But the no is no to intense looks at sexuality for a few reasons. Number one, that hasn't particularly changed. It's not like we go from the Stone Age to the Atomic Age in our loving. No, we're basically the same biological creatures we have been. There are some differences, but honestly, the second reason we don't do strong sexual content is it's icky to show in a classroom. So we're not going to do it. There's an upcoming movie I'll show my ancient kids, which is part of it anyway. It's a movie called Quest for Fire. And it's about these Neolithic, Paleolithic hunter-gatherers at the end of the Old Stone Age. And there is this wonderful scene of an attack by late Homo erectus on this tribe. And interspersed with the Homo erecti coming up on this group is a caveman and a cave woman having carnal knowledge of one another. So what I will do in the case of that movie is I will stand up here and I will block the screen during those moments of carnal knowledge. In any case, my commitment is yes to battlefield violence because it's historically significant. Yes to harsh language because that's part of the reality. But no to overwhelmingly intense sexual contact or content because that's not necessary in a history classroom and it's kind of weird. If you and your family can live with that, sign off on the movie policy. I also have a list of many of the movies I show. I don't show every movie on the list every year, and there are some movies that I discovered during a year. For example, I don't know if Silence is on there. But Silence is a film I intend to show you a clip or two from, and it's about Jesuit missionaries in Japan after Japan starts suppressing Christianity. It's an amazing movie. There's some wonderful clips, but it may not be on the list. If you or your family do not want to sign off on the movie policy, I give that list so that your family can indicate which movies you don't want to see. Now, beyond that, that's my responsibility. I've informed your family has a right to consent or not. I am not going to enforce it. What that means is I'm not going to keep a record of which movies you are and are not allowed to see. I have a much simpler and more common sense approach to this. I'll announce a movie. If I don't announce whether it's going to have, strong sex or strong violence or whatever, if I don't say anything about it, you can ask. And if at that moment you don't want to see it, or if you've already decided you don't want to see anything from that movie, you can get up and leave. And if it's a short clip, wait out on the porch until I call you back in. And if it's a longer clip, go to the high school NPR, do some work until I call you back in. That's the system. You are responsible. I do not want to hear complaints because I didn't boot you out in the middle of the movie Luther because your family didn't want you to see the movie Luther, which we're going to see in its entirety. It's your responsibility to fulfill your family's wishes and your wishes. Also, there are some R-rated films. These films are R-rated because they show battlefield violence and harsh language. I show clips from most of them. I don't think I show any R-rated movies all the way through. But it is your job to police your own content. I have no problem. I just want to know if you're leaving, just wave, and I'll say, and you go, or you can just go, or you can talk to me, and we'll make an arrangement that may be less embarrassing for you if you feel embarrassment about that sort of thing. But that's the deal. By the way, I also understand that sometimes you're just not feeling up to it. You might be a person that loves movies, that likes warm, whatever, but you're having a day where you're feeling unusually delicate. Maybe there's something going on in your world that has you all roiled up inside. Maybe you're feeling a little tendency towards queasiness, and you don't want to see people bayoneting one another at close range. I'm not going to show too much of that. In a case like that, you don't have to have permission from a note from your family saying, oh, they don't have, no. Again, you decide. And if you're not up to it that particular day, get up and leave. You were at home. I'm going to be making available for you, to the extent I can, clips that you can see online. You can do the same thing. If you don't want to see it online, don't open the link. Or if you see something after you've opened the link to the movie that you don't like, close it. The best form of television parental control is the off switch and the channel turner. So that's how we're going to do it in here. You get to decide if you're up to seeing a film clip or not. You can certainly ask me later what it was about, or ask your classmates. And if you're going to miss an entire movie, for example, I've had families decide that the movie Luther was too pro-Protestant because it's made by Lutherans, and I tell everyone that, but the family still doesn't want their kids to see it because they profoundly theologically disagree with that. Fine. I'll give you an assignment to do that will get you caught up on what people who see the film learn. So any questions about the movie policy? Seeing none. Collaboration on homework. The chapter surveys are a lot of work. And if I had friends in the classes, and among anyone who's taking European history, I might want to split the workload. I have no problem with that, with this set of provisos. You can work together. If you're doing chapter 12 and you got one person focusing on the great masters, Michelangelo and Leonardo and the other Ninja Turtles, fine. Somebody else can do warfare. Somebody else can do other things relating to the Renaissance. And you come together and you do work. Here's the proviso. You can share knowledge, but you cannot share answers in the sense of exact wording. If you are working with partners, I want you to write everything originally. Now, obviously, with the A-B sections, the multiple choice and matching, that isn't what I mean. I mean your essays and your document analyses. Those have to be in your own authentic original words. Absolutely insist on that. If I see work that is basically congruent, I will have a problem with it. If I see people that have worked together but put things in their own words, I won't. And here's why. If you put something in your own words, it means you understand it enough to put it in your own words. The primary point of homework in history is to check and see if you understand something. So, put it in your own words. Can you use a quote from a source? Yes, but put it inside quotation marks and make it obvious that it's a quote, and it should not be the majority of what you write in an essay or in a document analysis. You have to put things in your own words. One of the primary reasons why I do not have people type most of their work is because it is so tempting to cut paste when you're behind the 8 ball and in a hurry. Cut paste someone else's work, and that is a waste of everyone's time. In that case, you're having somebody else do your homework, which is a lie to me. It lacks integrity, and it also damages your own sense of right and wrong. So write everything in your own words, but you may work together. I have no problem with that on the chapter surveys. On the case studies, you're each going to be doing a unique topic, so that's different. I see no questions. So, yes?
No, actually, I was wondering if you could go more into depth about the opposed views section. I was a little confused yesterday.
Okay.
Hearing about it.
The example of the opposed views that I gave for your chapter survey, so you may want to have your chapter survey sheet out. What she asked about was opposed views, for those of you at home. So, the point of the opposed views is to basically pit different first-hand sources against one another and how they interpret what they're experiencing. In this case, what you have is Colloquy of Marburg. This is chapter 13's opposed views, where you have two people who are opposing. You have Ulrich Zwingli and Martin Luther, who are both Protestant luminaries. But in this case, the colloquy is one document. So intuitively, what you think is, okay, well, one of the documents is Luther, one of the documents is Zwingli. So you separate the documents out. In most cases, that's done for you. For example, I think that you've got Dante Alighieri, Niccolo Machiavelli on power politics versus Desiderius Erasmus on a Christian prince and ruler in chapter 12. So one is Machiavelli and the other is Erasmus. And what you're going to do is you're going to put all the contextual information about the author. For example, Machiavelli is writing The Prince to a nobleman who is a patron of his, whereas Erasmus is writing in general to Christians who are in leadership positions. It's a different audience. But you put the context down. That's in the first section, and I've listed all that. Content is summarize the essence of what Machiavelli is saying and summarize the essence of what Erasmus is saying in a manner that will make it easy to understand their point of view and the difference in their point of view. The vocab is self-explanatory, come up with 2 words in their definitions, and the critique is for you to talk about your personal thoughts on Niccolo Machiavelli's notion of power politics, realpolitik, it's often called, and Erasmus's notion of a Christian ruler's moral obligation to lead in a Christian manner. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and then so will we always have a third document?
No. Sometimes you will, sometimes you won't.
Okay.
So if you don't have a third document in the opposed views, here, I have it all, this is chapter 1. I was talking to my ancient kids yesterday. So here's the opposed views in the pink page. And here's the parchment section, which indicates a primary source document. For the third document, in those chapters where you only have 2 opposed views, you pick another document from the chapter of your own choosing and analyze that. Now, there are some opposed views that actually have 4 documents, in which case you pick 3. Okay? Any other questions? Okay. How I grade homework. When I was born cross-eyed. And as a result of that, my parents took me to an eye doctor who proposed surgery to cut and clip and suture some of the muscles around my left eye in order to correct the cross-eyedness. Cross-eyed is, instead of the eyes functioning in tandem, they function in opposition, which is not good. So they did an operation, which means they had to do some extensive work with me as a baby beforehand. After the operation, they took the bandages off, like 3 months, 2-3 months later. And it was only a month or 2 after that that the doctor said, oh, by the way, your son is blind in his left eye. You know that, right? What we think happened is that the doctor made a slip and accidentally sliced into the optic nerve between my left eye and my mind, my brain. It's still connected by a tendril. I can see basic shape and movement, but it's 2400. Perfect vision is 20/20. So I've got 2400 vision in my left eye, and I've got massive blind spots. I can't really see my hand here. When I close my right eye, I can see more, but it's basically very, 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 very faint. What that means is that reading for me is not the same as reading for you. Doing a lot of things isn't the same. For example, your natural computers, your eyes and your brain are programmed, like little primates should, to spot objects in three-dimensional space, if you believe in evolution, so that our ancestors could jump from tree to tree without falling and getting laughed at by all the women and never having a chance to breed because you're clumsy. So in the case of a person with binocular vision, when you learn to read quickly, you're doing a combination of close reading and skimming. My wife reads incredibly fast. I don't. As a result, I have chosen to assign challenging work, but I grade it by skimming. I will pick the same 2, 3, or 4 items to check on everyone's homework. I will pick it randomly each assignment. And then I will compare those small sections of the homework, whether it's a particular part of an essay or whatever, part of a document analysis, and I will read that section closely on everyone. And that's going to be the basis of my grading. On the one hand, it's cheap because you write a whole chapter survey full of wonderful words, and if we are unlucky enough and I happen to find the 2 or 3 or 4 worst sections of yours, I'm going to grade it on that basis. Well, if you think that's the case, come talk to me afterwards, and I'll be as reasonable as I can. I'm not going to promise to say, oh, yeah, you're right, but I will look into it, and if I think you're right, I'll change the grade. I cannot do this any other way, because I read slowly. So this is how it's going to be. You do hopefully a good job on everything you turn in for me. I do the sample grading, and I grade you based on the random sampling from your work. By the way, I am not the only teacher that does this, but I do try to be as upfront as I can about it. So, any questions or comments on that? By the way, I don't mind being the way I am eye-wise. I've been that way since childhood. I'm used to it, and I've learned to compensate. It's a fact, and it's a contributing factor to why I don't read as quickly as I would like. So, there we are. AP students, you need to make a purchase, or your families need to make a purchase. Now, I've given this to you on paper. In other words, I sent out messages to this effect, but I don't think that I have talked about it. Where did I put that? Ah, here it is. If you're in AP, this is the this year edition of the Crash Course book for AP European History. We will be using this as a part of our seminars, which we're going to conduct on Friday. You will be reading this in addition to reading the textbook. And this is actually something that can help clarify matters from the textbook and also connect it to the particular things that the AP exam tests for. This costs, I think, about $15 on Amazon. It takes less than a week to arrive unless there's something really weird going on. And I'll expect you, if you're in AP, to have it probably within the next 10 days or so. The information is in a previous message on Google Classroom, but if you don't know what it is, make a note to yourself to let me know, and I'll email you the information directly. Any questions from AP students or potential AP students on this? There are other AP resources that we use, but this, I think, is the most useful. So this is what we're going to use primarily. Okay. That was well done. Every so often, I believe that gravity flickers. And if we're not careful. We could fly off into space. Even if it only flickers for like a half second, imagine being subject to the forces of the spinning of the Earth without the gravity holding us in place. We go flying off into the air. And then if gravity starts again, we fall. So every so often, I feel the need to test gravity by dropping things and knocking them over. And so I'm doing a service. Some of you, by the way, do the same thing. Depends on how clumsy you are. I think that's it. Okay. We talked about the chapter survey yesterday. Do you have any questions on that before we go into the class policies section? By the way, my intent is that Friday we actually start doing history. This is hopefully the conclusion of most of the structure. Please go to this page in your syllabus. Syllabus packet. This is the page that says College Preparatory and Honors. Leap in love of Mike. Well, yours is going to say European history. In any case, it's the class policies part. Honors and AP European history. So you're flipping ahead to the first page of the class policies. And the first page of the class policies is a giant warning label on the class, as well as the signature place for you and your parents or guardians to sign. I've already given you the warning, and if you want, you can read it again sometime, and presumably you've already engaged with your parents to at least get them ready to sign it for next week, if you haven't already done it. Flip it. Page 2 of the class policy starts out with the standard grading scale, which is common throughout the Charter Academy's high school levels. There's also alternate grading, so if I just put an A on something, you can expect that the percentage rate is going to be 96. If I put a C minus, that's a 72. And Fs can range widely from 0, if you've done nothing, to 59. What grades mean? A's are good. F's are bad. Try to get A's. Try not to get F's. Grading proportions. 30% of the class is based on exams and major projects. I usually give one exam, sometimes 2 exams, for a unit. Each unit is about a quarter long. The first unit in this class deals with early modern Europe, which is everything from the Renaissance through the religious wars, the Age of Discovery, and the Scientific Revolution. And we're going to cover that throughout much of the first quarter, and you'll have a unit exam at the end. There may be quizzes interspersed. Quizzes and minor projects are the second part of it. That's another 30% of your grade. I will always announce exams and major projects like your case study. That gives you a chance to really do a knock-up job on making sure that you do quality work, or for the exam, making sure that you study. I feel comfortable giving quizzes anytime I want. I don't warn you. Sometimes I might, but I usually don't. I also can tell you that in one way or another, when you have a chapter survey due, you're going to have a quick quiz on the chapter, on or just after the day that you took the chapter survey, or that you turned in. So next week, probably on Tuesday or Wednesday, there's going to be a quiz on some of the items from Chapter Survey 12. You'll get a sense of how this works. Classwork and homework's 30%. Attitude, participation, and preparedness is 10% of your grade. The reason I put that in is if you show up every day with a workmanlike attitude, engaged, positive, trying your best. You don't have to be perfect. Trying your best. I want to reward that in a way that at least is significant enough to turn your grade into a plus grade or a minus grade or whatever. So that's how grades are done. And I assess attitude, prep, participation monthly. Daily expectations. Well, I have it listed out here in a bunch of little ways, but basically, you know what it is to be a good student. Try to be a good student most of the time. Learn from your mistakes. Now, does this mean that you don't have the option to be a human being and have a bad day? Hell no. My wife is a very unusual woman in that she has chosen to put up with me since January of 1985. We've been married since July of 1990. So she's got patience. She's a harder worker than I am. She was a better student than I am, than I was, and she is just an amazing employee. Well, back in the mid 90s, I had to go out of state, but my car was the more broken down of the two at that moment. That changes. So I was going to take her car out of state, and she was going to take my car to work. I had to leave about 3 a.m. Wednesday morning. On that Wednesday, we had already scheduled to get our cats flea dipped. We lived in Maine, lots of ticks, lots of other bugs. So that morning, after I had left, when she's worrying about me traveling 10 hours to Western New York, she's got to get our two cats, who sound like screaming banshees combined with TIE fighters, into our two kitty carriers. So she does this, and she loves the cats, and she hates having to be harsh to them. And then she has to drive, because we're in Maine, everything's an hour away. She has to drive 40 minutes to the flea dip place, which had been recommended by a colleague. So she goes down the road with cats exuding pus and fluids from every possible orifice, saying, "Oh, we hate you, Mom Cat, we hate you." And she's putting up with this, fine. So she gets there. We hadn't seen this place before. Again, we had taken it on recommendation. And she smells the air, and she looks at the quality of the cleanliness of just the waiting room. And she decides, holding her cats, there is no way on God's green earth I would let my worst enemy's pets stay in this place and get flea dipped. So she puts the cats back in the car, back home, gets them out of the kitty carrier. They run away, cursing at her and catties, and she calls work saying she's going to be late. Well, fine, she's not normally late. It's not a problem. She works in an insurance company. So she cleans up and drives to work, an hour from where we lived to Portland, Maine, and parks my car, walks across the street, goes up to the second floor where her insurance company is, sits down at her desk by the window, looks out, sees the car, and starts processing claims from people in a paper mill mid-state. An hour goes by. She's a focused worker. She pauses, looks out the window, and sees the empty space where my car used to be. And she realizes that my car didn't have a parking permit. She doesn't remember what happened next. The next thing she remembers, she's in the middle of this office filled with cubicles, eyeball to eyeball with her little nebbish of a boss, saying, "I can't believe you towed my bleeping car!" And she's bouncing, because my wife bounces when she's angry. It's kind of funny. It wasn't then. He's like, don't worry, Mrs. Schnurry. We'll take care of it. We'll get your car back. You don't have to pay anything. It obviously was towed by accident." And she was backing him into his office. Now, when she calmed down, when the adrenaline left her bloodstream, she expected to be fired. But she wasn't. Because she was a good worker. She was one of their best workers. In fact, she probably was their best worker. And nothing like this had ever happened before. Nothing like this ever happened again while she worked for them. It was a bad day. It was a perfect storm, a confluence, a synchronexis of suck that turned that morning into a morning where she lost control very publicly. If you're a normal person and that you are able to function here, and you have a bad moment, we'll deal with it. We will deal with it. It's not the end of the world. Everyone has them. And under the circumstances we're operating under, most of the adults around you are closer to the edge of crazy than they want to be. So try your best. It's not a problem if you have a bad moment or two. What is a problem is making a habit of it. A pattern of lousy behavior, a pattern of late work, that's a choice. That's not a bad day. That's you deciding not to prioritize getting your work in on time or not to prioritize controlling yourself. That's a discipline problem. And I will treat it as one. But don't worry about it if you're just having a bad day. Any questions so far? Okay, next page. We'll go quickly now. Absences and expectations. If you're not here, I expect you to go on Google Classroom and see the lecture and do all the work you have before you come back or within a day or two of coming back. If I am giving a quiz and you've been out for a week, I'll probably expect you to take the quiz because I will have expected you to get yourself caught up by the time you go back in. This is not as the rest of the school functions. This is how I function. If you know in advance you're going to be away, try to make advanced plans. Come talk to me if you're going to be out, and we may be able to do something that'll make things easier. I don't know. As we've talked about, is not an answer. It's the beginning of an answer. I don't know, but I think. Notes, handouts, and building a portfolio. That you have something to write on and write with in front of you is my business. What you write is your business unless it's loud, profane, and distracting. So the notebook is there for your benefit, not mine. Extensions. I'll only give an extension in writing. If I don't have a note that I've written giving you an extension and you don't staple it to your work, you don't get an extension on a due date. And it should be a rarity, and it should be because of a good reason. If it is, come see me, preferably in advance, and I'll write a note. You can staple it on. If you can't do it beforehand, come right back as soon as you're here. We'll talk, and I'll write you a note that you can staple to your work. Late work loses 30% off the top, period. If you get your Chapter 12 survey in before Wednesday at 3, which is when the A-Day people are there. So you have until Wednesday at 3 o'clock. If it's Wednesday at 3:30, or if it's Thursday morning or any time after that, you could have done a perfect job, you'll get a 70. You could have done an okay job, you'll get a grade in the 50s or 60s. You lose 30 points off the top for anything late. So don't make it late. It's a vampire that sucks at your grade. Work not yet turned in is assessed as a 0 until it's turned in. I don't leave blanks. It's a 0 until it's turned in. If I give you a quiz, answer everything. If you're not sure of the answer, guess. Take a shot. Who knows, you might be right. In life, you don't get any credit for leaving answers blank. Always try to answer. Always try to take your best shot. You're smart. You pay attention. You have a better chance than most of getting a good guess right. Improving exam and quiz grades is one of the most important things about this class if you struggle. Anytime except for 2 kinds of tests, the silly tests, which I'll tell you about, and the semester finals. For every other test, you can rewrite wrong answers for half credit. If you're doing a test and it's blank attack Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, and you put the Belgians, that's wrong. Okay? What you do is, on a separate sheet of paper, longhand, you write, the Japanese Empire attacked Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 1941, sneak attack. And along with all the other rewritten questions as corrected statements, you staple it to the front of your old test so that I can compare your answers, and you turn it back into the shelf. You get half credit for that. So let's say you got a 30 on the quiz or on the exam. You can bring that 30 up to a 65. If you get a 70, you can bring it up to an 85. If you get a 98, you can bring it up to a 99. For those people who get 99s and do the rewrite, I'll bump it up to 100. But that's a lifesaver. Not everyone is a good test taker, but anyone can work hard. So every time you take a quiz or a test with me, including these chapter surveys, let's say next Tuesday you come in, I give you the chapter quiz on chapter 12 because the surveys do. You bomb it, you get a 20. If you do rewrites, that'll bring that up to a 60. So don't stress. You can always do rewrites, except for the midterm and the silly test. Any questions there? Okay. Plagiarism. If I catch what I think is intellectually dishonest work, you will rue the day. Make sure that you don't use anyone else's words and claim them as your own. This is not a court of law. I don't have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt to a skeptical jury. If I suspect it, I will call you in. I will talk to you about it. It would be wise for you if you were seduced into doing something intellectually dishonest for you to admit it right up front and say, what can I do to make it right? And we'll make it right. But if you lie to me, there's nothing more valuable in life than trust. This is something that you may discover for yourself. But to me, there is no treasure on earth more important than trust. Love is rooted in trust. All the good things are rooted in trust. And why a person would allow their trust to suffer for a grade on a quiz never made sense to me. So please be honest, and we'll make everything work. Okay, I'm recording myself because of the craziness of the year. I do not want you to have smartwatches or anything else on your wrists when we have a quiz, because I have had students in the past succumb to the temptation and look up answers while they're taking a quiz. No. Also, since I'm recording the lessons, you don't have to. I have never allowed students to record me except under the rarest of exceptional circumstances. If I am recorded without my knowledge and against my will, I will sue to the fullest extent of the law. No one has a right to record me except me and to take my words out of context. I have seen far too many YouTube videos of that, and I'm not going to be a victim of it. Again, I will treat you with decency and respect and dignity. I expect the return. So please, no personal electronics, unless you have a special need, in which case, come talk to me and I'll learn about it. Next page. Classroom discipline. It should be evident. This is a formal environment. Formality doesn't mean the absence of fun. I try to interject humor, what passes for humor in my bizarre world at least, and I hope that you will feel free to interject humor into your actions here as well. But if I have a problem with something you're doing, I will tell you, and I will expect to be obeyed. If there is a problem, if you think I'm asking something unreasonable, come talk to me about it later. But we are not going to have a conflict in front of this class that I'm going to lose. This is my environment, and for the sake of learning, I need to control it. So there is a degree of wolf-like dominance that I assert here, not because I enjoy messing with people, but because it's necessary for the job to work. I've supervised adults. I wasn't a teacher full-time until I was 35 years old. What I'm going to do is not going to be anything out of line. Just please, if I ask you to do something, do it. If there's a good reason why you can't, don't do it, but don't make a scene. If you're having an emotional moment, ask to leave and just basically sit outside the office. And that won't be a problem. That's you taking care of business. If your life is falling apart around you and you just can't listen to my droning voice one more moment, raise your hand, point to the office, I'll say go, and it'll be no problem. Okay? You can just make up what you're missing later. Snow days and due dates. If we have a snow day, everything is bumped back to the next day. If things were due Monday and we have a snow day Monday, it's due Tuesday. Textbook we've gone over. Syllabus work we've gone over. I would like your work to have all of these things on it. So in section 21, Mr. G's tips on quality work, I want all this stuff. If you just put your first name, because you're the only Ziggy at this school, I will take 5 points off of anything that you do, at least. A lot of people just get used to putting their first name on quizzes and tests. -5 off the top, period. First and last name at all times is a basis for formal work. And all of these other things would be nice too. And I've described my movie policy to you. Any questions? Okay, then we have gone through the class policies pack and the syllabus. The list of movies is right here. For the moment, AP is not doing any additional work other than getting the book and being prepared to view the seminars online, which will start next Friday. Not tomorrow, next Friday for AP. Tomorrow, just our regular class videos will happen. I guess that's it. So I thank you for your attention. You may talk quietly among yourselves until I dismiss. Thanks for your questions earlier.